In order to correctly portray my argument, which my opponent did not do, and to provide an extremely strong reason as to why the proposition should not receive a positive vote, I want to restate my initial argument by providing a quick summary of it that clarifies the problems I see with the proposed resolution and highlights its weakness and ineffectiveness. I stated that the United Nations cannot, by its own charter, act against a nation when that nation is acting within their current rights and not violating any current international treaties or laws. I talked about the UN Charter and their purposes for international peace and stability, and I strongly stand by those points because they are facts about the organization. I also suggested that the UN has to take a different approach other than directly demanding the Taiji hunt to stop. I said that perhaps they should work on revising and advancing established treaties or drafting up new ones, and I still stand by the mutual exclusivity of those alternatives to the proposition's argument. Now, unlike my opponent stated, I didn't just say that the UN cannot act against the evil doings of specific countries. That would be a wrong thing to say. Of course, the UN can do that. Like my opponent mentioned, there have been various instances where the UN has effectively gotten involved against the illegal activity of nations. But the key word in this statement, which is also the key word to my argument and reason why the proposition should be rejected, is the word illegal. Before I continue my argument, I want to further clarify that from a moral stance, I completely agree with the urgency of the matter and not only understand but encourage the passion that my opponent has for the situation. However, I must point out that as passionate as one may be, the world and all nations are governed by law and we are all expected to act by it in order to maintain stable international and domestic relations. That being said, I will now explain the persistent faultiness in the proposition's argument. As I just said, the UN should not act against Japan in this situation, and that is because it is simply not the right time. Currently, the actions committed against the dolphin species are not actually in violation of any sort of official laws, rules, treaties, or mandates. The problems with the proposition's last proposal for dual action by the UN of advancing already established treaties while at the same time demanding an end to the hunt is actually mutually exclusive due to the fact that while animal rights may be the moral thing to act by, they are not yet geopolitically recognized or official laws. Therefore, UN action that would demand for the Japanese hunters to stop the hunt of dolphins would be a violation of the rights of the Japanese hunters by the UN. Until animal rights are accepted and recognized as official law, whether it be by advancing its already established treaties or by pushing for the successful and official recognition of movements such as the Universal Declaration on Animal Welfare, the UN does not have the power to mandate the actions of certain people against unprotected animals. What I am trying to convey is that I see the need for immediate action in order to save the dolphins. I understand that all living species deserve to be protected, and we as humans should do our best to preserve their well being and help them to maintain their rightful and important spot in our ecosystem. However, due to the fact that we are civil humans, we choose to lead lives protected by official law. I must restate that the United Nations cannot act against a nation that is not committing any violations against presently recognized treaties or laws. In order for the UN to have the power to act directly against the hunt in Taiji, Japan, the rights of animals must first be recognized. As immoral and inhumane as the actions of the hunters may be, we cannot leave behind our civil code of law and regulation by asking the UN to act against recognized law. If we do that, then we risk the downfall of our entire geopolitical system and potentially threaten our survival by compromising the protection that we are all granted by governing laws. The dolphins and other species do need to be protected, but they need to be effectively protected, and the process is definitely a hard one that must be fought and dealt with very carefully in order to not compromise the results that could possibly hurt other species if not done the right way. The UN must act for the sake of the dolphins, but they must do so in a coherent manner that will not violate the law. In order to have truly effective and successful ends for the dolphins, the proposition should be rejected and the UN should act immediately but by the due process of the law.